The Cuxons was a great show, but it actually had some messed up moments not a lot of people know about. Hanna-Barbera was notorious for cutting episodes from its lineup in the early days, largely because the audience reception were never certain. Now me, I make $2,000 a year and work at a pizza parlor for some fat Adolf Hitler looking man who will never let me take the weekends off so I can buy pornography at the only store in town. My mom disconnected my internet. That bitch. I wrote this on a letter and had a computer whiz friend of mine type it up and post it online in case you're wondering. I only got the tape because a rich investor of pornographic videos accidentally gave it to me instead of butt gay disabled cum slut cowgirls with dyslexic legal midgets 12.5 inches. What the fuck? Okay, I'm not kidding. I masturbated to that to CMI. But it was difficult. Now that I've gotten these important details out of the way, you should know something. There's an episode of the Cuxons that is unlike any other, not because of how great it is or how well written it is, but because it completely changes the rest of the backstory to the entire show. It may even explain what will happen in the year 2013. Well, technically it's 2020, but go off, I guess. Assuming it is 2013, it already happened, and if it hasn't, it will. Watch out. And if it has happened, you already know that the future is dire one because everyone is going to die in a terrible fire caused by George Jetson, who is a real man. I question that. This is the only Cuxon episode with a title card. The title card is shocking, horrifying even, because it's written in a blood red letters and a creepy font, which is Comic Sans. George Cuxon murdered his family in a trash compactor. George Cuxon is seen speeding angrily through space traffic in a spaceship. If you haven't seen the show, George Jetson has a spaceship. He looks really angry, like he's 2 clicks away from crashing into traffic and killing himself. God damn it, space lights! Police state, my heart is filled with scrambled eggs. He begins to ramble and the tape starts to flicker. He's reading a text message on a cellular phone, many years before cellular phones were invented. It's Jane, his wife's phone. The text message stays on screen for 10 seconds. I want I want you to read me until I come, Steve. Ugh. A picture of a blender is shown. George is really angry. A vein is seen traveling in high detail up his neck. His eyes are bloodshot. Anyone would be angry if their wife was cheating on them, but George seemed especially angry, murderously angry, even as though he was going to murder someone. I had a feeling I had a feeling George was going to murder someone, and my feeling was correct. Later in the episode, he murdered his family. He slams the automatic futuristic door somehow, or opens. Damn it. The robot maid approaches him and he tells her right quick, "Shut the fuck up, you goddamn sack of nuts and bolts." "Well, I never," she replies. George Jetson starts dangling his ball sack over the robot, and robot human sexual activity is illegal in his space jurisdiction. The robot starts to cry and her circuits fry up. George Jetson continues dangling and dangling his ball sack while the robot continues to cry. She catches on fire and starts running frantically around the building before George offers her some water. "I'm going to teabag all you motherfuckers," he says. He punches her in the robot vagina and she crashes through the window to her death. He teabags out the window for a full 6 minutes, and you could hear the voice actor giggling to himself, even though the animation never changes. And someone even walks in and asks him if he wants to order pizza. His boy, Elroy, runs in but slips on a comedic banana peel and slides across the floor. He teabags Elroy. Let me repeat that. He teabags Elroy. His nutsack is shown in high detail. I'm not saying that. From signs of years, from signs of years of teabagging random people, Elroy is very confused. "Dad, I'm scared." George leads him into the kitchen after zipping his pants up and and putting on a huge set of comedic sunglasses. I would have laughed, but prior to the teabagging was too much for my funny bone, if you catch my drift. Here, son, try these space pills. George hands Elroy some pills, which clearly say cyanide on the bottom. Dad, these don't look so good. Try them, George says. They're space pills. Elroy eats the space pills and dies. I was starting to think that there was something wrong with George Jetson. As the coroners arrive and George bags them, Jane comes in and George looks really upset. You cheated on me with a scented blender, he said. I want you out of this goddamn apartment. He throws a sandwich at her and she collapses to the floor like a bowling pin. It's a futuristic sandwich, George says, as though he's trying to explain the fact that he was editing on this episode, or explain the fact that the editing on this episode was extremely shitty. Let's get some future mayo on it. Okay, this he starts to unzip his pants, and this is when I turned the video off because because it was making me very uncomfortable and sexually confused. After I saw my therapist, he got some intensive psychotherapy. I videoed to view the tape again. George Jetson seems different in the second act. Jane is dead, lying on the corner, and George is throwing her, Elroy, and his daughter to trash compactor at the plant he works at. He's recycling them into chairs. The chairs are just cheap plastic lawn chairs, not futuristic chairs. The next part is the most disturbing. He sits in the chairs naked, and a man that looks like Adolf Hitler joins him. I think it was a metaphor for a desperate neo-Nazi future, but it could be a man with a mustache, specifically. Hey, Super Mario, why don't you fuck off? What's weird is that Super Mario doesn't even exist at this point, nor did Nintendo of America. But the show takes place in the future, so they do exist. Somehow, they talked about their favorite flavors of soup until George abruptly starts to ramble. Listen, my little German friend, I want to tell you about a future. A terrible future. He waves his hand across the sky. They say that they say there is a place somewhere far out in the reaches of space where you could see everything. One single point of light where the entire universe unfolds to you, and you could see vast of infinite creation. All of the planets, the stars, the lights, the beams, the organisms. The camera zooms deep into George Jetson's grizzled face. I'm gonna find that place, Adolf. It zooms deeper until the animation resembles a human face. And I'm gonna teabag the entire universe. Hitler starts to cry as the camera zooms deeper and deeper until George's retina, which disappears into a set of points of lights that become the entire facet infinite cosmos. Stars and galaxies shine and shiver with luscious beauty, and a cheap visual overlay of a real man's nutsack slowly fades into view. Suddenly, there is a sound of a doorbell. Oh shit, he says. My pizza. Future pizza. He gets up, and you could hear a lot of confusion as the pizza delivery man asks why his ball sack out. There was a lot of yelling, crying, and even a gunshot is heard, and a horrible shadow begins to envelope the screen. At first, I thought it was some kind of paranormal entity, but as it began to lower more and more, I realized what it was. It was a pair of testicles.